Are you ready for the ultimate bikepacking weekend adventure? Join us for an unforgettable self-supported bikepacking trip through Southwest Virginia. The Grayson Gravel Pie Bikepacking Adventure travels along the Virginia Creeper Trail, the beautiful gravel roads of Grayson County, Virginia, and the New River Trail. All lodging and camping arrangements are included, along with daily routes and guides riding along with you. This self-supported adventure offers resupply opportunities every 20 miles for your food and water needs. Find out more at graveltraveldirt.com.
You're listening to Mid-Atlantic Gravel, Travel, and Dirt.
Hi, everybody. I'm Brian.
I'm Joey.
And I'm Maggie.
This, folks, is episode 235 of Mid-Atlantic Gravel, Travel, and Dirt. If you're new here, this is the podcast where we talk about gravel bikes, adventure biking, bikepacking, bike camping. Tonight, we're going to talk about endurance bikepacking races or just playing bikes. Joining us this episode, Maggie Livelsberger. Oh, God, I practiced and I practiced and I practiced. I had it so good. And I was so worried about the first part. Livelsberger, an accomplished bikepacking endurance racer. She rides a single-speed OTSO Fenrir and is the female winner and single-speed fastest known time holder for Doom in Arkansas, Coast to Coast in Michigan, GRUSK in West Virginia, and Arkansas High Country, both loops on Arkansas High Country. Isn't that correct, Maggie?
Yeah, the full loop and the south loop.
Cool. We're welcome. We're looking forward to chatting with you about all that stuff, as well as the pants route, which has become very popular now.
Yes.
I think it's become like the go-to thing now.
I have some of my employees come into work and say, did you watch this video?
On the pants?
I was like, sure.
We'll dive into the pants. Before we get to all that, though, remember, folks, to check the show notes for our most current discount codes from folks like Salt Stick, Joe J Bars, Cutaway USA, and Orange Mud. And here at the very top of the show, Joey, we've got some big news. We have some very, very, very big news this week.
Yes.
We have two new Patreon members to welcome. Ian Brandt and Abe Al-Salah. You know Abe, right?
Yeah, I love Abe.
Yeah. Thank you guys for joining our Patreon family. It means a lot to us. And Joey's going to be right on top of getting a sticker pack out to you.
I will.
Abe's
Philly.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. So very exciting. Thank you one more time for joining us there. And we really do appreciate all that support.
Yeah. Speaking of support really quick,
yes.
I need to thank Travis Olson because I just pulled out like my winter clothes, quote unquote, and half of my closet is GRUSK.
Me too. I've got all the long sleeve shirts and all this,
like
all the hoodies
and like 10 shirts. And anyway, thank you, Travis, for keeping me dressed.
Travis keeps us, clothed. Before we get to anything else, I also got a question from a member of our Patreon family. This comes from Matt in Pittsburgh. He says he's planning a garage overhaul project this winter, and this will need to include arrangements for several adult bikes and more than several kids' bikes of all sizes. If you haven't covered this in an episode already, I'd be grateful for a discussion on the various methods of storing bikes. I've seen everything from lean it against the wall to platforms that can be lowered from the ceiling. A few things I wonder about. Is it okay to hang a bike by its wheels up on the rear wheel with a hook on the wall for the top wheel? Or are there any advantages/disadvantages to the various options? Or is it all just personal preference based on space? Joey, what are your thoughts on that?
Well, two myths I get is people think if you hang up your bike with hydraulic brakes, they will stop working.
Okay.
And they only stop working if you have air in the lines from a bad bleed.
Okay.
And I used to drive truck and trailer for bike races for bike teams, and we had those like carbon wheels and everything hanging in a trailer.
Okay.
We had no problems with it.
Yeah, but
there's some like dark magic thing where everyone thinks if you hang a carbon wheel, it'll destroy it.
Right.
It won't.
Well, if the bike was in a trailer, that wasn't long-term storage. I think is there any
I'm talking about a trailer, hitting potholes and everything. Like, you're going to get more jarring. Yeah.
Abuse. So,
yeah.
Okay. So really, there's no issue with hanging a bike. You might have sealant issues, but honestly, you should be refreshing your sealant in the spring anyway. When you're pulling that thing back down, if you're the kind of person that your bikes hang all winter.
We are we live in a townhome, so I don't have a garage like I used to. But
Mm.
I don't know. You just used to throw stuff up on the wall with those $2 hooks from Ace or Lowe's.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I don't know. How do you store your bikes, Maggie?
We just redid our garage
Oh, see?
this year, and I wish I could remember the name of the racks, but you put the front wheel in it, and then it actually pushes sideways.
Oh yeah, like pivots.
So it gets them out of the way, and so we actually put those up against the garage wall, and it has immensely helped with space in there, which is kind of nice when you have multiple bikes. So I'm a big fan of those.
Yes, my neighbor did a pivot thing in his house. He was showing me. It's pretty cool. And then, you can. Oh, it's like a book thing. I don't know or whatever it's called, but yeah, you can like swivel them and push them sideways, and
they hang and kind of like can.
Yeah, I want to say like even Black & Decker did a version of that.
They almost swing, right? You kind of like it's like a closet kind of thing where you can slide them back and forth.
Yeah.
Is that what it is? Yeah. Okay. I'm just trying to visualize in my mind's eye. I have a very small garage, so I have trouble storing mine. Joey's laughing at me because I basically have a giant barn as a garage, so
Huge.
I don't have any problems with that. So I don't really worry too much about space. But
our living room's got like 6 bikes.
Yeah, I mean, this is the way it is. But that sounds really cool, and I've seen those things that you're talking about that you swing, that the bikes you put it on, you like swing them back and forth so that the handlebars are going different directions, and you can slide them. So I guess what it really comes down to though is space.
Yeah,
it's what have you got to work with, and what have you got to store, and how often do you want to have access to certain bikes? Is it going to get pulled down once a week, or is it literally going up and it's not going to be touched again for 3 months?
Yeah,
the trainer bike setup or something like that. So, Matt, I'm not sure if that's much help, but you get some ideas.
I like the pivot bike thing. It's pretty cool.
Yeah.
And if you have seal in your tires, just rotate it every so often. I found the biggest standable on my own wheel the other day. I don't even use stands.
I guess the one myth we were able to dispel though is it okay to hang bikes by their wheels? That it's fine.
I don't know as much myth, but I do get a lot of people that call the shop or come in talking about whether it's like hydraulics or carbon wheels or something with like actually hanging them on hooks.
Okay.
Just weird, but
all right. Cool.
It's a legit question.
Yeah, it is a very legit question. And thanks, Matt, for that question. And happy to be able to help
some pictures
a little bit. And he actually had a suggestion to maybe we could throw out some sort of a GTD hashtag for people to use to share their garage setups.
Hashtag Matt's Garage.
Hashtag Matt's Garage. There it is. Let's all flood Matt.
I'm a simple person.
Everybody flood Matt with pictures on the Instagram using Matt's Garage as the hashtag so that he will get bombarded with different... by the time it comes around, you get confusion because there's so many options.
Yeah.
So, all right, you want to do Strava Club real quick, Jay?
Yeah, we have... All right, let me see. I can't read. Lee Goldberg from Silver Spring, Maryland. That's a local, 98.3. Brian Dussault from Feeding Hills, Massachusetts with 190. And Conrad O. from Richmond, Virginia with 133.4. So we brought in the Mid-Atlantic. Kind of.
Yeah.
Top 100 was only 96.6 miles for the week, and we're at 908 members.
That's up a few. We've been steadily picking up 3 or 4 every week now.
Yeah.
When we get to 1,000, Joey's going to shave his head. So, isn't that the
I'm going to go from like hair down on my shoulders this year to no hair. Just search Gravel Travel Dirt on Strava.
And you'll find us there.
Yep.
Okay, Maggie. Let's dive in to all things bikepacking, endurance racing. So one more time.
Sounds good.
Tell us a little bit about yourself. Maybe introduce yourself to our listeners if they don't know who you are.
Yeah, my name's Maggie Livelsberger. I am from Erie, living in Erie, Pennsylvania. So East Coast riding primarily.
Right on.
I ride a single-speed OTSO Fenrir, and I tend to go towards the gravel bikepacking races and endurance races. And I haven't been riding that long. That was just something that was really appealing to me and just kind of went for it. So that's sort of where my background on biking is. It's been about 5 years that I've been biking.
Okay, I was going to ask that question. You said you haven't been at it that long, but I was wondering how long.
Yeah, I moved to Erie in 2019. I'd been a bike commuter before that.
Okay.
Moved to Erie in 2019 and didn't really have anything to do. So I started biking. And it was just sort of a find my way around, learn my way around. Rides got longer. I kind of enjoyed that. And then started gravel riding a little bit more specifically. And that's actually, it was like end of 2019 that I had first seen or heard anything about bike pack racing,
Okay.
and kind of put that on my radar, and did a couple trips in the following 2 years, and then decided I would try a race. So my first bikepacking race was actually October 2022.
Oh wow.
Wow.
And so that was the first bikepacking race. I'd done a couple endurance races before that, just kind of prepping for it. So not a super long tenure of riding, but just kind of jumped in with both feet.
Did you have like a background in other endurance sports or anything before that?
I had done some ultra running and
okay.
trail running. Yeah, that was one of those, when I graduated college, I had kind of done club sports and team sports, and then you kind of leave that environment. I moved away and took a job and was like, what the hell does somebody do when they live by themselves and work remotely? And so I started running. And so that kind of background to me was a little bit normal to think about, and the endurance side of things. You know, it was one of those. I moved back to Philly and lived there for a couple years. I got into a car accident. My car was totaled. I'm like, I'll just ride my bike. And, you know, just kind of that was never not an option. So biking for me was a lot of just commuting, errands, and then really once I moved here, it was sort of that transition into riding racing a little bit more seriously.
You know, I've heard that story just recently a couple of times about, you know, car accident and, oh, look, I have this bike and okay, I don't need a car, and turn to the bike.
That was me for 5 months.
Yeah, it's true. It's true.
One car family.
Yeah. Yeah. I hadn't even thought about that. I even thought about the fact that it was your story too.
Yeah.
I mean, it's interesting though, how you can, I've always wondered though, how that actually plays out. Like having a no car, being a legit no car kind of a person for years and years and years. I think you have to live in the right place. I think you have to.
Wholly agreed on that one.
Yeah. I think you just got to be in the right place at the right time. So let's talk about gear for a minute. Now you've already introduced what brought you to the OTSO family, because I am also an OTSO rider. I ride a work and tie.
Yes. Love it. I rode last year, or 2022. I was riding a Noli Cash, which is a company out of British Columbia. Love the bike. It was a gravel bike by a mountain bike company. So I like a little bit more aggressive style bike that, you know, wider tire clearance, all that. Not designated as a single speed. It does not have any rear dropouts. So I was running a external cup threaded eccentric bottom bracket. There are only 2 on the market, one of which just came out this year. So it was, you know, kind of as the shop that I go to and work part-time at, you're band-aiding something for a while, and eventually the band-aid's going to fall off. So after 2022, the fall, after high country and a couple races, I kind of just started shooting out some emails to companies and seeing, you know, hey, I'm interested in your bike. I am very short. I'm only 5'2", and I have a 28-inch inseam. So for me to find a bike that fits well is really difficult. Most small frames, standover height is generally 29 or 30 inches. So unless I can get a really sloped top tube, I have a hard time. So I talked to a couple of frame builders and don't have the funds to go, you know, full custom. And I was talking to Nathan Baker at Hush Money, and you know, we kind of talked a little bit about the Fenrir and OTSO and bike fit on that side of things, and that sort of started the conversation. And then I got in touch with some people at OTSO, and we kind of came together, and we're like, this is kind of a cool niche. The way that OTSO does their ambassador program, they kind of spread the bikes out. And so they like having people riding different types of bikes, whether it's stainless or titanium, on different types of terrain in different parts of the country. And, that conversation was like, you're riding this bike as a single speed. We're not seeing other riders single speed. Let's give it a whirl. And, we just kind of came together that way. And I absolutely love that bike. I love everything about it. To be as short as I am and be able to ride a 29er is mind blowing to me. I have absolutely no toe overlap. And that's a tough thing to come by.
And I also saw the setup that you run. We'll talk a little bit about bags, but when you have a frame that's that small, you have triangle issues. You have what do you do for bags, and you got to put something up on top of the top tube, and that further impacts your standover. So lots of good things have to come together. Sounds like that's exactly what happened.
Yeah.
Cool. Is that the only bike you ride?
For racing, yeah. Primarily, I still have my Nollies. I have one built up as a geared bike, which actually a friend of mine has been borrowing for a little while, and the other one's a frame sitting in the garage. If anybody needs a 49.5 frame, hit me up on Instagram. There, I'm about to put brand new drivetrains on both, and we'll probably be listing those for sale really soon. I love them. I just am looking at N plus so many other bikes, and so something has to go.
I think a lot of us have turned to it's less about N plus than it is about N plus wheels, different wheel sets.
Oh my God, yeah.
I begin to think about like, well, I get tired of swapping the 38s for the 42s for the 50s back to the 38s, and you go round and around and around depending upon what you're doing, and I just feel like more wheels would be almost better than more bikes.
It really is true, and I actually do have the 27.5s and the 29s for my Fenrir. So if I feel like doing a little bit more mountain biking, and I'll still do, rigid single speed and throw those on, and that's still an enjoyable ride. And the bike handles completely differently. So, and I did the same thing. I had 700 and 650B for my other bike, so I could ride, and I actually had two 700 wheel sets. So I had my, the road tire on there, the gravel narrow, 700 by 40s, and then the 650s on there for the knobbier tire.
Yeah. Why'd you choose to go single speed? What's the allure there?
I don't know. It was really, I built my commuter bike, which is the bike that I have owned since my car was totaled. It's an old Surly Crosscheck, and it was pretty beat. I'd been commuting on it for like 10 years, and I did not feel like putting on a expensive drivetrain. And when I moved to Erie, we get crap winter. And so I thought, you know what, I'm just going to run it as a single speed. It'll be easier around town. Nice. And I had the shop convert it for me. And I started doing some gravel rides on that, the way I built it up as a single speed. And it was just a damn blast. And it sort of, I don't know, it makes the ride a little simpler, even if it's a little bit more difficult with the climbing, but I really enjoyed it. And then that was the same year that, so it would have been, I think 2020, I built that up. Lindsay Shepard did the high country full route on her single speed, which I later found out was like mechanical issues, but she still did it. And I was just blown away by the idea of doing 1,000 miles on a single speed.
Yeah, with 80 plus thousand feet of elevation gain over that 1,000 miles as well, right?
Yeah, pretty close to it. And I was totally blown away by that. And I messaged her, and I just said, I want to sign up for an endurance single speed. I just think what you did was so cool. It's so inspiring. And that's actually the day that I signed up for Michigan for the 200, the first time I did that. And I built up a different bike as a single speed to ride. That's when I built up one of the Nollies.
Okay.
And, but that was sort of like, it just seemed like such a cool thing to me. And it just sort of clicked for the enjoyment of it. I love the idea of studying the map and the terrain and the course and deciding what gear fits best during that.
Right.
I think a lot of that takes a little bit more. It's a little bit more pressure because then if you totally blow up or it sucks, you're like, well, I certainly picked that wrong. Instead of the other side, like, oh, your drivetrain blows up and you're like, mechanical issue. That sucks. This one, you're like, yeah, that was totally my fault. But I do enjoy that part of it a lot.
I am drawn in by the simplicity of it, and fewer moving parts, fewer things to break and go wrong. And I haven't even thought about the economics side of it. I mean,
that's huge.
Yeah, it's pretty massive. That is actually very massive. To eliminate that cost on your setup is just huge, and the repairs on it. But boy, it scares me to death having one speed climbs these hills. That just to me is.
If it's too ridiculous, you just get off.
Is that really what it comes down to? When it comes down to it's just so ridiculous, you just kind of like gotta.
I'll let Maggie speak for that one. But
is it a lot of hike a bike, or is it? Or
absolutely.
Yeah. Okay.
Absolutely, and I think there's definitely like two theories. One is gear it a little bit harder so you can go faster where you can ride, and then just hop off and hike, or gear it slightly easier so you can climb a little bit more. You'll still have your hike a bike, and then you can keep a moderate pace while you're riding. But absolutely,
there's some strategy. There's some
there's
tactic. There is what it sounds like. There's strategy and tactic when it comes down to a racing. You know what? That's a really cool angle on that.
Which side do you usually fall on if you were to pick?
It depends on the race wholly. Like for Michigan, I'll gear harder. So I'm just pushing that hard gear. There's not a lot to it. And you know that if you're in a headwind, your legs are screwed and screaming. For the bikepacking races, I tend to err on a slightly spinnier gear. And what I actually do is when I'm on the trainer kind of, beginning season, I train at a really high cadence. So for me to keep up like a 95 to 100, it's not horrendously taxing because I've gotten myself used to it.
Okay. Let's switch gears for just a minute, even though we don't have any. So what's the bag setup look like and what's in them?
Oh, yeah. So this was really cool. I actually just this year picked up a bag sponsor, and it's actually a good friend of mine in Erie. And the company's called Hikes and Hose. And his background is an ultralight backpacker. So he was making custom backpacks for people and sort of started, touching the toes in the water of the biking side of things. And we kind of chatted at a few events around here, and we are like, oh, it'd be cool to do some stuff together. And a couple months after that, it was finally like, all right, let's really do this. And we built a couple bags. I've tested some things out. We made some adjustments. We've tested some other things, but it's been really fun because I get to kind of be the R&D alongside, what he's working on. So the setup that we came up with, I did 2 this year for some different rides that I've done. I've been doing some route scouting, and for that I have a set of panniers that we did, and they're about, I think, around 8 liters, smaller ones, roll top, double clip, and then I'll do a single zip 1 compartment frame bag and a handlebar bag. So that's sort of my touring setup. And then
what's the total space for that? You got like a
oh, I'd say for the touring setup, I'm probably looking at 16, about 20 liters.
Okay.
Just in those bags. And then I can put, with a rack on, I could throw a larger bag on top of the rack.
Okay.
Since I do the mini panniers. For like my race setup, I have the seat bag is 8 liters. It's probably about 3 for my frame, 3 to 4. Top tube bag, I would say, is solid 2 liters. And then occasionally I'll do a handlebar bag, but I usually don't ride with one. So what's that? 8, 12, about 15 liters.
Okay.
14, 15 liters total.
And what do you take Let's specifically focus on the endurance race side. What do you have in those bags?
Wholly dependent on race distance and temperature. So like for GRUSK, which was 262, I only ran my frame bag and my top tube bag.
Okay.
And it was just food and water. I knew I was going to just do that in a single push. And then, electronics, if I need anything, extra plugs to make sure my computer's charging. And I do use a Dynamo hub, and I usually have a backup cache for something like high country. For that full loop, same bags there. I just added the 8 liters on the back. So my sleep system for this was a tarp, an ultralight bug bivy, down pants, down jacket, down booties, a pair of wool shorts, smart wool shorts, a long sleeve wool shirt. That pretty much was everything that fit in my seat bag.
Okay.
Frame bag, I had rain jacket, arm warmers, leg warmers, and a 1.5 liter reservoir for water. Top tube bag is all food. And then 2 dunk bags, one of which is like kind of my electronic station. So all my plugs are in there, my battery caches are in there. And then one would be kind of food, snacks, drinks, anything extra that I have. And I will do 2 bottle cages on my fork.
Okay. Sleeping pad or no sleeping pad?
Oh, I do have that in the back. Yep. And
Okay.
I use an inflatable.
Okay.
It's like a 3-inch inflatable.
Okay. Yeah, I don't know how folks do it without it. I couldn't even begin to think about that.
I think sometimes it's the more uncomfortable you are, the less sleep you'll get, which when you're racing, you kind of often are erring on the side of as little sleep as possible.
Okay. Although, that, was it Lachlan Morton just did The Great Divide.
Oh, yeah.
And did it. And he was a real proponent of getting a lot of rest to go faster.
Yeah.
But I mean, that's Lachlan Morton. That's Lachlan Morton. So, I mean.
Yeah. I think he did like 48 hours of riding and then he'd do 12 hours of sleep or something like that.
Yeah. I mean.
Something crazy.
And you got to balance that like you should get more sleep against the person that's doing the effort, he's a beast. So,
oh yeah,
you kind of got to take it all with a grain of salt. And what I've heard is that setup differs a lot, obviously based on distance, location, which is weather dependent, time of the year. So it's kind of an ebb and flow kind of thing.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Which kind of sucks because then you sort of need a lot of gear.
And where I'm assuming that there would be those times where like, GRUSK is in July, but yet we've been up there and it's been 50 degrees and you're
chilly,
freezing, and then another year it'll be 80 degrees and you're sweating. I mean, so it's kind of like a bit of a crapshoot as well.
Oh yeah, the arm warmers and leg warmers, even in those, I hate to say short distance, but the stuff where I'm not going to sleep, those are always in the bag.
Yeah.
Because that's something you can't go wrong with it, and they take up next to no space.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay. Interesting. That's cool. And now the bags. Give me the name of the bag company one more time.
Hikes and Hose, and it's HOSE.
Okay.
A lot of their bags are 100% recycled fire hoses.
Oh wow! Oh, cool.
And that's kind of where they started. They make really nice like utility duffel bags, and like fanny packs and stuff out of the recycled stuff. And then a lot of the bike bags, that's the lighter weight material, and the different nylons. But that's kind of where the start of the company was.
I was going to say I have some fire hose and I use it for my kayaks on the racks. It's like that doesn't feel like it's very lightweight material.
No, and that's a lot more like their utility bags and stuff like that. So.
Super tough though.
Oh yeah, that's why we use it. Yeah, that's why we use it.
Quickly, because we're going into the winter. Like I know it's switching kind of a little bit, but like commuter gear, like you do a lot of bike commuting. On your daily rides, like how are you dressing in Erie?
Oh God!
Like, do you have like a jacket of choice or like something that you won't go without that you have to have?
Last year I ended up buying a pair of fleece lined soft shell pants, and that is absolutely like the cold weather necessity for the ride. Those have been a game changer. Because I'd get to work and, just ride in like my work pants and go in, and my legs would just be, bright red and freezing for hours. So those are a necessity. And then I usually will do a heavier weight pair of socks. Jacket wise, I usually throw a lightweight down jacket, and I have just I think the shell that I have is like a waterproof Endura, like mountain bike hooded shell. And I'll wear a balaclava when it gets really cold.
Oh, I discovered. Well, I didn't discover, but I made a big focus.
Sure you did.
I think you reach a point where you start to invest a little heavier in clothing, and I did that last year. I went to a lot of wool, and it's all the difference in
You
the
don't
world.
smell as bad anymore.
Thank you. That's one of the things I was actually hoping for, and that's why I wear it all the time now. So This is a real problem for me. Thank you, Joey, for sharing. I appreciate that.
You're welcome.
Okay, so you did a lot of big things this last year. Doom in Arkansas, Coast to Coast in Michigan, GRUSK, Arkansas High Country. All of our listeners are familiar with GRUSK. But probably the one route that is getting all of the attention, I think it's getting all the fanfare and all the raves right now, is the PANTS.
The Mid-Atlantic attention,
Yeah, Pennsylvania north to south. Talk to us a little bit about that route.
Yeah, I was super pumped, and I'd heard of that. There are a couple like iterations of it when you search on Ride with GPS, and like with some of the friends that I have around the state, it has kind of like always been one of those. Oh, this would be fun to do sometime. This would be fun to do sometime. And then the Pennsylvania Dirtbags kind of revamped the big excitement on the route, and they made some adjustments to where the earlier iterations have been. A lot of early ones were a lot of the Pine Creek Trail, which I think in total is like 62 or 63 miles of just like flat chip gravel. And it's very nice. It has its merits. They kind of took the route off of that and sent it up all the climbs and did a little bit more technical gravel. And I think they did it at the beginning of the year, and so I reached out to Jake, and I'm like, I think I'm going to give it a go. I had a race in August that I kind of had thought about doing, that I was on the fence, and decided that logistics wise, travel wise, cost wise, it was just a little bit too much. And so for me to go and do the PANTS ride, be right in Pennsylvania, super accessible. I got dropped off at the start, which is, I think it's actually, I'm going to forget the name of the town it starts in, like just on the New York PA border.
I can't remember it either, but as soon as you say it, we'd know it.
I know it begins with an L. That's all I can remember. It might come to me, but it was really fun. That to me was, I'm going to go out and do this as a solo trip.
Lindley is the name.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I had done, a couple bike pack races and the Grand Departs. Often with the single speeding, you kind of like fall in with other people. And so one of my goals for this year, 2022, was like 100% solo trip, and get really comfortable sleeping in the woods. And PANTS is a route where, like, if you want to go race it, 100% you could do it in one shot. I think there was a guy who just did it in like 28 hours.
Wow.
And it's really an accessible route for something like that. It's hard route, so not for everyone to enjoy doing it in one shot, but it's absolutely doable.
So for folks that don't know, PANTS is 325-ish miles and 25-ish thousand feet of elevation gain. About right?
Yeah,
Sound about right?
I think something like that. For me, my goal was to go and sleep in the woods and get really comfortable with that, and then do the route. And logistics wise, it ends in Hancock, Maryland. So for me, that's right on the C&O Canal. I hopped on the C&O Canal C&O Canal to Cumberland, and then you pick up the Gap Trail. And so I biked from there to Pittsburgh. I had to figure out how to get picked up, and like Pittsburgh's 2 hours for me to get a ride home. But I couldn't make it. So I kind of turned it into a little bit bigger trip, but the Pants route itself is really cool. It is definitely a lot of technical riding. The one thing that I think I might have been, after the dirt bags did it, like the next person that did the route, and the very start of the route, like 8 miles in or something like that, on the map, ended up navigating onto the West Rim Trail. And I think it was just the way, like when you're making routes on Ride with GPS, if you are like scrolled out just a hair too far, it like will default you from a road to the trail. So it defaulted to the West Rim Trail. And at the time, like I had been just coming off, I did the route in August. I was just coming off 3 races. I did Grit at the beginning of June, and then I had Michigan. Like 2 weeks later was Michigan, and then 2 weeks later was GRUSK. So I was in this very much like race mindset. I'm like, well, I have to follow the route the way that it's made. And I know you can't have a bike on the West Rim Trail. So I hit the West Rim Trail and I shouldered my bike I hiked it.
Pull a little Arizona Trail action.
Yeah. And so it was like 8 miles of this. It took forever. And then the next time I had no cell phone service. So I get service and I message Jake. I'm like, Jake, you can't put this route out. It's on the West Rim Trail. He's like, there's a road that runs parallel to it. We just took the road. I'm like, oh.
We're not laughing at you. We're laughing with you.
Oh my God. No, you could totally laugh at me for something like that. And because there was a section that had actually crossed over this road. But I don't know where the road went because all I had was no cell phone service, so right. I can't pull up maps and my Wahoo with this route on it. And I'm like, well, I'll just hike it. And I did, and it was probably 2.5 hours of hiking with my bike on my shoulder.
And you say that's early in this at 8 miles in?
Yeah, it was pretty quick in there because you start out head into Pennsylvania. It's a road for the first bit. And then I know exactly where I did it because I had started riding up the road because it makes sense to ride this road where the split was. And, the Wahoo will beep at you. And I'm like, there must be a trail next to it. And so I backtracked down to the trail.
Oh, jeez.
Should have been running parallel the whole time and cut a number of hours off. But it was very much that, like, I have to follow these things as they're made because you'd have to do the route in all these races. Yeah. It was really cool. Actually, I met a guy on the trail, on the West Rim Trail, who was in the process of creating a 300-mile bikepacking route through Pennsylvania. And I think he calls it Pause. And for the life of me, we took a picture together. I cannot remember what his trail name is. Wow. And I'm really sad. But he was like, what's your trail name or your bike name? And I was like, Larch March. And so we got a picture together on this route because he said I was the first person that he'd seen in like 2 weeks.
Wow.
So it was kind of cool to get to experience that. I got some really nice pictures of the Pine Creek Gorge, but don't do the hike a bike if you're doing the Pants route. There's a road right next to it.
Got it. Now,
definitely my big advice.
I'm assuming Large Marge came from Pee Wee.
Oh yeah.
Real quick, sorry, met that a while ago.
No, actually, I get that question a lot because I think we're hitting that like age where a lot of people haven't seen it, and they're like, "Well, you're short. You're like pretty little. How did this come about?" And but it's a Holy Large Marge from Pee Wee's Big Adventure.
Nice.
Yeah. Yeah, but Pants route, well worth it. Stay on the road. It's definitely some very technical riding. There's a lot of really killer climbs, really fun gravel, really fast descending. It's that central Pennsylvania, the PA Wilds is kind of known for. The views were really fun. I had an absolute blast. There's some really great stops along the way. It's very accessible to do as a bike pack touring trip and break down the mileage. Which was really cool. I totally took advantage of it. It was like 92 degrees when I was riding. So every place that had ice cream, I stopped. and ate ice cream. And every gas station, I think I got one of those like SpongeBob. That was my favorite thing on the trip.
little
Ice cream
gumball
things out of the
eyeballs,
little
yeah.
coolers.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean they're terrible, but they were so good that day because it was just so hot. A lot of general stores and stuff like that, and I got to there's a 24-hour truck stop just off Route 80, and it's one of the last stops before you kind of head into Bald Eagle State Forest, and then you hit like Bald Eagle into Rothrock and kind of bounce back and forth. So I knew at that point when I had looked at the route, I'm like, I'm gonna camp in Rothrock. There's a couple like trailheads and stuff like that. So I went in, sat with a lady, played some casino games in this 24-hour truck stop because I was like trying to kill time, so I didn't ride too far, so I couldn't sleep. And played some casino games, had some noodles, and then I finally, I'm like, I think it was like 11:30 or 12 o'clock at night. Got all my stuff ready and rolled out, and I think I rode a couple more hours, and I just set up camp in one of the like nature preserve parking lots. Set my, because I was testing out my setup with this is the first year I've used the tarp and the bivy setup. So I put my tarp up and got everything all set, and I just camped out there, and that was wholly the 100% the intention of my trip was how comfortable can you get being alone in the darkness and with all the noises and everything like that. And it was fine. I think that's one of the, and I know we kind of went through this, we'll probably talk about it later. One of the holdups for a lot of people is that comfort level. And you really just kind of have to do it and make up your mind. I'm going to do this and it's going to be fine. And it really is.
And maybe you don't have to do it by yourself. I mean, that's I think also something that people have a hard time finding other people that are willing to go and do some of these dumb things. So it sometimes can be a bit of a holdup as well. I'm following along on a map, and was that the Pit Stop Travel Plaza?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
Yeah.
That was actually gonna be my question before you answered half of that.
What was that?
Was earlier, Maggie, you talked about going out and being comfortable in the woods.
Yep.
And I've lost touch with that in the last 10 or so years from a lot of backpacking. Like what's your I don't know, advice is this thing to say about that? Like for people like they won't go out and do stuff because they are not comfortable. What's something you would suggest?
I think, if it comes to that sort of stuff, I did a lot of rides, and I would find people to do at first, and we would do night rides. And, we kind of say like, okay, let's meet at 7 o'clock and we'll start riding, and we'll ride into the dark. And then you kind of get comfortable with that. And then I sort of evolved to doing an overnight ride by myself and just getting comfortable riding at night alone. And so I kind of went in pieces like that. I did, more night rides, more dark rides. Did a couple like off-road night rides, and just, I guess, baby steps to get yourself more comfortable with that. At this point now, the idea of riding overnight alone, it doesn't even faze me. There's still times with the camping you figure out if you're comfortable in your environment, but I think really just a matter of going out and doing it. Often you'll find people more willing than you think if you just ask around, or if you can kind of find the gear, or maybe do a campsite at first, and instead of feeling like you have to set up totally remote alone in the woods, ride your house to a campsite and just set up at a campsite and have your campfire, but do it by yourself. And just, I think we're so inundated with other people and information and technology all day long that sometimes just being alone, even if you're around people, feels weird.
Yeah.
And so I think just kind of normalizing that piece again is a really good transition.
That's interesting. The decompression of it. The ability to kind of find yourself again in a place where maybe you You know, because I think back to like when we're kids, you know, going out at night in the summer, that was kind of what you did. You know, you kind of ran around in the woods, and you were used to it. I think at that point.
I do it in
At
my
least-
30s now.
At least I was. I mean, you know, that's the kind of upbringing I had. But maybe some folks have never done anything like that.
Yeah.
So they can discover. And it is. We had the Lanterne Rouge from Unpaved long full pull a couple of weeks ago, and they talked about the fact that riding in the dark and riding in the night was just such a cool experience, and the things that you see, and what you're able to encounter. And they were talking about the porcupines. You know, seeing porcupines, freaking them out,
That's so
seeing
cool.
porcupines in the woods in the dark.
Yeah, the nightlife.
Yeah, the
It's totally
nightlife.
different,
The
yeah.
nightlife. So finding other people to kind of, you know,
Yeah.
kind of, and there's places you can do that. So that's good.
Yeah.
And so overall, a grade for the pants route.
Ooh, I'm gonna go with a solid like. Oh, that's a tough one. I'm gonna go with like a solid A minus.
Okay.
Nice.
Yeah, it has the accessibility. The climbing's definitely tough. I think for me, I was gonna do my last push. I was like 40 miles from the end of it, and that's when I was hitting the abandoned turnpike tunnel.
Okay.
And that was mostly like I ended up getting a hotel in Breezewood, and I'm like, this is personal safety
Yeah.
thing. I don't mind sleeping in the middle of the woods by myself because animals. It's a whole other beast to think about, like remote where there's maybe not always the most savory people.
Yeah. Folks,
So-
if you've never done the abandoned turnpike, do yourself a favor, and go give it a shot. It's,
Oh yeah.
in that Breezewood, it's Pike to Bike is what it's called, and it's a very, very cool thing. Maybe we could do a whole show on that at some point, Joey, and talk a lot about that. But
That's where we should go this weekend.
let's do it. Let's do it.
Oh yeah, it's so awesome. But yeah, definitely not one I'd want to do by myself at night.
You don't want to camp in the middle of that tunnel, then. You know, in the summer though, it would actually be pretty nice. That 50 degrees inside that tunnel feels awful doggone
That
good.
is very true. It would be a lot cooler.
You want to push those limits on sleeping out in the woods and out in the wilds on your own. That would be the place to do it. Maybe some immersion therapy. You could just
There
dive
you
right
go.
into that. And then camping in the woods, you know, with the sounds of the birds and the crickets and all those things wouldn't be so
Would be
bad.
nothing.
It'd be nothing compared to that. You could actually go do that with friends and you wouldn't even know they're there. If you,
Oh yeah.
Oh, that is a cool place, though, for sure. That is a super cool place.
I think I want to try pants in like April or May.
Be a perfect time.
Yeah, I think we have to do our due diligence as.
Be a perfect
Yeah, I
time.
think that would be a really, really nice time to do it.
Yeah.
Yeah. I figure, like you said, you did it in the 90s, which is crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah, oh, that's so hot. Yeah.
Yeah.
No,
Nice.
it was. I think that early season would be really cool.
Yeah.
And then honestly, like you hit Hancock, and I grabbed some food there. You can hop right on either the C&O or the Gap Trail, and keep your trip going,
Mhm.
which is I think what's really, really cool about it. And then you hit DC and you have Amtrak right there. You hit Pittsburgh, you've got Amtrak right there. And that route was really cool. That I had, Flat has its, all right, it's boring. I'll be
Yeah,
honest,
yes.
but
It's green
it
tunnel.
has its merits. It was still really enjoyable. You can look around a lot more, and there's actually some really nice stopping points along the Gap Trail to kind of check out some of the history. I went into Ohio Pile and checked it all out, and
Yeah.
that was a really fun push. I did that from Cumberland to Pittsburgh in one push, and that was actually a super cool day on the bike, and met a lot of people along that route. And I think that's what I really liked too with the pants ride is you can turn it into a longer trip, and that was really fun.
Yeah, as if
That's how we can get home.
if
Is-
325 miles isn't long enough for you, then you can extend it a little bit further. But I agree.
You tack on another 150.
I think one of the coolest things about Gap is the trail towns and the way that they've come together. It's not so much about the experience of riding on the same crushed stone surface and riding through the same green tunnel all day for 2 or 3 days in a row. Although I do like the northern end when you start in Pittsburgh and it's so urban, and then about 20 miles out you lose the asphalt, it turns into gravel, and then it's almost like that first day. I've led that 3 or 4 times as a tour, and it's just I think that first day is probably the best, is coming out of Pittsburgh, and the environment shift is so radical and so different that it's just sort of a really cool experience. Then the rest of it's the same. So Joey, we'll definitely put pants on our radar.
Oh, it's been on my radar.
We could do half pants, we could do short pants, we could do full pants. You could do all different sizes of pants. So out of all that stuff that you did last year, what would you consider sort of your favorite route / experience out of all of those?
I feel like I am leaning towards high country.
Okay.
That's something I've wanted to do for so long. That was the very first bike packing race that I had ever kind of heard of that was a thing. So that was sort of a long-term goal for me, was to do that full route. So I think that in and of itself will always hold like a very, very special place to me. And riding down there. But Doom is pretty damn close. That route, northern Arkansas, if you've never been there, is utterly gorgeous, which I don't know, was never on my radar as this is a really beautiful place that I'd love to keep going back to visit. But it's absolutely gorgeous. The Buffalo River is the most beautiful shade of blue, and the riding there is unbelievably rugged, which I really enjoy. I'm not a hard pack, fast gravel. That's not my preferred type of riding. Okay. I really like doing a little bit more of the rugged terrain, and the Ozarks really play well to that.
Push those. So I think push the limits a little bit. Too. Push the limits a little bit. Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. There was some downhill sections, and this is of both Doom and the high country, and I had actually put my Wahoo on so I could see the grade as I was going downhill. And you're on this like super loose gravel at like a -17 grade on these downhills.
That's called like, sliding. You're no longer riding, you're sliding.
Yeah. And so you have to decide, you're like, if I go fast, I'll die. But if I go slow, I'm going to fishtail. So you try to find a happy medium.
Wow.
Yeah, but it's very challenging, but it's just an incredible place, an incredible terrain to get to experience.
I got a question that's kind of a crossover, like a twofer, and I'm going to throw them both at you at the same time because I think there probably might be a little bit of overlap. What kind of tips would you provide to first-time bike packers, somebody just interested in exploring this thing they heard about, and what kind of hints and tips would you pass along to somebody who's a more experienced bike packer that's thinking about making that jump into the endurance race scene?
Oh yeah, I think for the bike packer, like somebody just trying to get into it, ask questions of people that are doing it and get yourself comfortable. But 100%, I recommend finding a loop route to do, because logistics of point to point is very difficult to navigate and can add a whole other layer of headache to trying to figure out what you need to pack and what you don't need to pack and planning for a first trip. So definitely a loop route close to home, or if you're wanting to plan one for yourself, find a reference point, like take yourself to a campsite to a campsite to a campsite and then back home. Okay. But just do it. You can like overpack, underpack. You're always going to be missing something or packing too much. When you're doing the trip, it doesn't even matter. Bring your creature comforts and, or take yourself out to dinner when you're doing it. My first ever bike pack trip, we went from Erie to Philadelphia to go eat a bunch of food at restaurants that we missed after we moved, and stayed at hotels the whole way across the state. And it was a blast. You got a shower every night, you got a good night's sleep, but still had the experience of taking all your stuff with you, how the bike feels packed, enjoying the scenery, and, you know, doing your fun stops along the way. So I think for somebody very new to it, that's a really easy way to get into it. For the more experience going to the race side of things, it's really paring down what you can get away without having and being okay with being uncomfortable. Okay. And realizing that that's the aches and pains are just going to be there, and it's a normal part of the experience.
Okay. That's great. That's good advice. That's good. That's very good advice.
Yeah.
I will never forget one of the, we had a first timer on a bike packing trip that we did, and they literally showed up with a rack on the back of the bike with a 2x4 strapped to it, with gear stacked on top of that, strapped to it. And, you know, everybody kind of scratches their head, and you know, there's a thing that I learned in my leadership training for adventure cycling, is you allow people the dignity of their own suffering. So it was, okay, if that's what you're going to bring, that's what you're going to bring. We're going to have the best time we can with that setup. And then they had a great time. And the next time they came out, they pared that down a little bit, and then pared it down. I think that's the other thing, is you're always going to be changing your setup.
Absolutely.
Always.
And always learning.
Yeah. Let's look ahead for 2024. Joey's got on here upcoming Hellbender events. What's that all about?
Oh, yeah. So the Hellbenders group sort of grew out of an initial meeting with some riders from Lancaster. And we met very briefly at the Hootenanny in 2022, actually. Yeah, so just last year. And we're sitting around a campfire, and we're like, man, wouldn't it be cool to have a non-competitive group of women from Pennsylvania that all just like to ride together, and racing wasn't a focus. And this was, you know, my friend from Lancaster had said that, and, you know, she said, I think it'd be cool to call it like the Lady Elks or something. And I had been thinking about this for a while. I'm like, oh my God, yes, I think it'd be amazing. I always thought the Hellbenders would be a cool name. And we kind of looked at each other. We're like, that's it. Let's do it.
Nice.
And so the idea was kind of to build a group of, you know, women, non-binary cyclists who maybe didn't fit the mold of, I want to bike, and I want to bike fast, and I want to race, but I want to meet people, build a community, feel comfortable asking questions and trying new things, and kind of the adventure riding. And so that kind of is where the whole thing was kind of born from. And so we kind of have the Western PA side, where we are working on incorporating Erie and Pittsburgh, and we have the Eastern side, which is kind of the Lancaster based, and they're, you know, Lancaster and Philadelphia. They've had some group rides up in World's End State Park, so they have a little bit more of the state to kind of manage, but a lot of it is, you know, partnering with other organizations to do some group rides, leading some women specific sides of those groups, so we can have some Q&As, some information sessions during that. And for this year, we're really hoping to have some Hellbender weekends. So one thing that we definitely have on the radar for the western side of the state, Memorial Day weekend, there is a race called the Roughneck Roubaix in Titusville.
Sure.
And that's kind of in our backyard. And we are going to lead some group rides during that. So for people who don't want to race, but want to experience an event and the community and meet some more like-minded people, we are going to do a group party pace ride for the 25 miler and the 40 miler during that race. And we're also going to have some training group rides leading up to it. So we're kind of gauging interest and letting people know they don't have to sign up right away to do anything like that. There's no extra cost. But if they're interested, those will be going on during the race, and we should have actual, kind of schedule and information up with links to that race. And actually, Kayla, one of the other organizers, and I are doing a touch base tomorrow. But the hope for this year is that we may be having I guess loosely kind of call it a gravel camp.
Okay.
But kind of mid-state, we'll look at doing a weekend-long informational and ride. So it'd be group rides, gravel rides, adventure rides. We'll have some clinics that would include, bike nutrition, intro to bike packing, working on talking to some people who might be able to offer a few other things, map reading, route making, different sides of that, and then have, some of the meals incorporated in that. So that's kind of one of the big focuses that I'll be working on for next year. And then we'll keep doing the smaller group rides, and that includes gravel rides, mountain bike rides in those areas as well. So hopefully just keep growing the community and really trying to create a hub of information where if people have those questions, that person who is interested in bike packing but doesn't know anybody that wants to do it or has a ton of questions, we want to create that safe space to ask those questions and hopefully connect people in the community so they do have those people to start riding with.
That's cool.
in their regions.
Sounds like Hellbenders has legs.
Yeah.
You see what they did there, Joey?
Very small ones.
Very tiny legs, but it's going to get those legs. It's going to. That's actually a very, very cool concept.
Yeah.
And if there's ever anything we can do to help support in that, then be sure to reach out to us and let us know.
Thank you.
What other kind of events? Like you got any other big races on your radar for 2024?
Oh, I'm not. I'm still working on it. It gets very difficult. I work full time, so trying to make my work schedule and race schedule is a bit difficult. But everything gets costly, with the travel and the races, and kind of gearing that. So I'm really trying to be very mindful of what I do this year. For the Roughneck Roubaix, Adam, the race director, just added a 250-mile option in there. So I will be doing the 250-mile. That's, again, Memorial Day weekend. And then probably leading the 25-mile ride, the party pace ride after that. And I have absolutely nothing else on the schedule. And other than possibly going back to Arkansas to do the high country loop again, I have some unfinished business with that route.
Very good.
And, I think I need to give it another go. I have some goals after this year, that I think are a little bit more attainable. And that's, I try not to repeat events. I like to explore new places, but if I leave an event with unfinished business, that's one thing I have to go back. That was Michigan for me this year. That was the second I did that one in 2022 and 23, because the first year I did it, I did not beat the race the sunset time.
Okay.
So unfinished business, I'll go back and do my best to finish it. So
clean up the edges. Clean up the edges, so to speak.
Yeah.
So if folks are looking to get in touch with you, they have questions about Hellbenders, if they're, how can folks get in touch with you if they're looking for you?
Yeah, so I'm always happy to answer questions on Instagram. That's probably the easiest, and that is large_Marge03. And then our Hellbenders group page is pa.hellbenders. I might have to look at this again. Hellbenders Adventure Collective.
So if they Googled Hellbenders Adventure Collective, they'll find you. If they
search, you would search on Instagram. Yeah, we don't have a website just yet. That's hopefully up and coming. But yeah, on Instagram, if you search Hellbenders Adventure Collective, that'll be a link there. And that is where we're kind of doing the hub of events and postings. That's going to be the busiest place, but easiest to get a hold of us. And that would, there's a couple of us that keep eyes on that. So we're usually able to answer questions really quickly there.
Great. I will do a little bit of homework, and I want to put links to all that stuff in the show notes so that people, if you're listening and you want to find the direct links, I will have done the homework, and I will go over there and I will put those links in the show notes so you can find them. Yeah. Thank you so much for joining us, Maggie. That was wonderful. Wonderful. It's a great,
well, thanks for having me.
Great
that was
conversation. Great conversation.
I'm very happy we finally got to touch base.
Yeah, I told you the other day I've been putting this on for like a year.
Joey's been on a mission the last
lately.
Few weeks to like find gas.
I was just brought up if I don't like my ADHD, if I don't write it down or anything like that, obviously it's taking me like a year.
I'm putting stuff in the shared notes. Did you notice that? I'm doing it. I'm doing the thing. Yeah. So Joey and I try to talk to each other at least a little bit every day. You want to stick around for this or that? We really would love you to.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, I'm going to throw a couple things out, and Maggie, you're first, and with an answer. Yeah, no pressure. Guests first, and then I will answer next, and then Joey will muck it all up at the end.
Yep.
First item: pumpkin spice or peppermint?
Oh shit, neither.
I am never been a fan of the whole pumpkin spice thing. I like pumpkin pie. Don't get me wrong. Pumpkin's good, but I mean, it's just so overdone. I will go with peppermint because it's Christmas is coming. The goose is getting fat. Joey?
I hate anything pumpkin related.
You hate the color.
I don't even like pumpkin pie. I love orange. Orange is one of my favorite colors, but I do like peppermint.
Yeah.
Well, there's something refreshing about it.
Yeah, peppermint. That's easy.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Second item.
I like mint stuff in general.
Yeah. Minty fresh.
Like my tea, it was like mint nighttime tea. Yeah, anyway.
Okay. Would you rather climb on chunky loose gravel or descend on chunky loose gravel?
Oh, climb on chunky loose gravel. That's my wheelhouse. The descending is creeping.
I don't really get an opportunity to do much of either. We are very much flatlanders down here. So both of them kind of skived me out. So I think I'd much rather climb. I enjoy climbing a lot more than descending, believe it or not. I'm a big guy, and it seems odd, but I enjoy getting in that groove, finding your rhythm, and kind of settling in. Joey?
I hate climbing. I know a lot of cyclists do, but I also enjoy fast, fun, technical downhills.
Okay.
I started out downhill mountain biking. I don't know if that was it. And there's still, I think it keeps me in contact with everything because it's still deathly scary. It's still, I can't talk tonight. There's still a lot of it that scares the crap out of me. Loose.
Anything loose.
Chunky downhills where, like you said earlier, like you go too slow, you're going to fishtail. You go too fast, it's like, you trust your equipment and your ability.
Yeah.
And like, I've done a ride. I did a ride in World's End where I blew through a set of brake pads. Some crazy descending up there.
Well, you know me, I love to destroy my brake pads.
Yeah. I remember getting to the bottom of that and just heard metallic. But it was so much fun.
Okay.
You got to climb to do that. So
that's true.
Yeah.
But it sounds like you would prefer the descending. Yeah. Sounds to me. I'll answer for you. Would you rather be stuck with a bike with old down tube shifters or interrupter brakes?
Ooh. Down tube shifters.
Okay.
I wouldn't shift the gears.
You don't need gears.
Just
That's the dumbest this or that ever, Brian. God, what an idiot I am. So I'm old school. My first bikes had down tube shifters, so I didn't even have. There was none of this indexing stuff. You had to kind of, which I sometimes prefer. When your indexing gets off, it's a little wackadoodle. So, I will go with down tube shifters because I feel like the brakes are just in the way.
What are interrupter brakes?
They're up on the bars.
Oh, little suicide things.
Yeah, I don't know. Some people call them different things. Yeah. I've always heard interrupter because it's sort of in the middle.
I'll take the down tube shifters because I hate like mushy brakes, and those never feel good on any bike.
Yeah, I can't even imagine. Where did that even come from? Who thought that was a good idea?
It's practical for some people. I know as a bike shop, there's people they felt safer.
Really? Okay.
Because you got to move your hands to brake if you're sitting up there.
Yeah. Okay.
So,
last item: Travis Olson or Travis Kelce? That was very timely.
but I don't even know who either of them are.
Travis Olson. Travis Olson is a very good friend of ours and the director of GRUSK. Travis
Oh my
Kelsey.
god, I do know who he is.
Travis Kelsey is of Taylor Swift fame.
Oh yes, definitely Travis Olson.
We love Travis Olson.
Yeah,
We,
GRUSK is wonderful.
It's
I
just
had
amazing.
an absolute blast there this year.
Travis Olson all day long over Travis Kelsey. I won't tell you what Jess said that Travis Kelsey was.
Oh boy.
Whatever. Joey, you have to pick Travis Kelsey.
Well, this is a tough one.
If your wife hears you pick Travis Olson over Travis Kelsey.
Travis Olson, he's a studly man.
Yes,
he's
he is. Yeah.
he's very kind to me.
Yeah.
He has sent me, like I said earlier in the podcast, he keeps me dressed in the winter.
He clothes us.
Yeah.
So we kind of go.
I have a lot of alcohol from him sitting over there. It's like if I don't drink anymore, I got to give it back to him.
No, you give it to me. Travis, tell him to give it to me.
Travis is a well-rounded guy.
Yeah.
Olson.
Okay. Very good.
If he's not hosting a bike event, he's usually volunteering at another event.
It's
helping
true.
out.
True. And there's so many of them coming up.
Yes.
You're starting to see all the things
I'll start
popping
pushing my whole volunteer at bike events for the season coming up.
Yeah, that's something we tend to push quite a bit. So it is about time for us to shut this thing down.
Yeah, I've been on the road all day. I'm tired.
Thank you, Joey.
This was a great podcast, though.
Wonderful. Thank you, Maggie, for being here with us.
Thank
It
you.
was
Yeah,
fantastic.
thank you. That was fun.
Great conversation. To all of you out there listening, thank you for listening to this episode of Mid-Atlantic Gravel Travel and Dirt. If you've enjoyed the podcast, maybe consider joining our Patreon family and being one of the cool kids. Because everybody wants to be one of the cool kids, right? You know, I'm just saying.
Yeah.
We really do appreciate the support, and your monthly donation of just a couple of bucks really helps Joey keep things going. How can folks get in touch with us, Joey, if they want to?
Well, you can come shake my hand at the fuck around next weekend.
That's right.
Is that next weekend?
No,
Next Friday.
it's like the day after Thanksgiving.
Yeah, Black Friday.
Yeah.
I'll be up there. I'll actually make it all the way this time because I drove halfway for the Hootenanny. We'll be there. Our Instagram, I don't know what is our Instagram, is at Mid-Atlantic GTD, and our website is at graveltraveldirt.com.
And Mid-Atlantic Gravel Travel and Dirt is recorded this week from right here in Blake's kitchen, all the way up to Erie, Pennsylvania. Thanks for riding along. Until next time, do good, be nice, go slow, respect others.
Love you, bye.
Love you, bye.